And as always, we are glad and privileged to be joined by Dr. Tim McKnight this morning. Welcome in. Thank you.
Good morning.
A little
Thanks
frosty
for
this morning.
inviting me. Yeah, it is a
Oh,
little chilly.
it's our pleasure. So you wanted to talk about the rise of modern medicine and big pharma, which sometimes we don't like that term very well. So
Yeah, and it might be a little controversial, but that's okay. Just an opinion, and I've had some experience in medicine for 25 years that I can fall back on
Yeah.
to support some of the thoughts that I have and the observations that I've made. But this is really a story that began at the turn of the 20th century, early 1900s. And it was really started with the oil industry. So Rockefeller, at the turn of the century, controlled 90% of all petroleum refineries in the United States, and including Standard Oil Corporation, which was the biggest. And in addition to fueling automobiles, they found that these petrochemicals had the ability to create a variety of new compounds, including plastics and other things, and things that you could consume, things that you could take, pharmaceuticals. So during that time, scientists were also really starting to investigate and discover different vitamins that are required. And not only the vitamin themselves, but the structure of vitamins. So they were starting to create these vitamins in the laboratory. And of course, then Rockefeller, who was really powerful, had a lot of wealth, saw this as an opportunity to take advantage of this and maybe use some of the discoveries they were making with petroleum in the synthesis and creation of vitamins. And it was 1935 when vitamin C was the first vitamin that was synthesized. So it was about this time that Rockefeller started to look at these possibilities of not only using petroleum for fueling automobiles, but also for plastics and other chemicals, as well as medical applications. But there was a big problem with the plan that Rockefeller had, and that was that natural and herbal medicines were really popular in the United States in the 1800s and the 1900s. We could chew on willow bark and extract aspirin from that. That's what the Indians did. When they had a fever, they had pain, they'd chew on willow bark. And so there's all these herbal approaches. You watch the old Westerns, and Doc's got that black bag with all kinds of things in it. But it was a lot of the old stuff. It was what we learned from the American Indians. It was the Chinese approach. It was herbals, and
which they ground up into powder a lot of times.
Right. So, and so there's all these different approaches that the healing arts were using in the 1900s, and this was a holistic approach, and this included herbalists and naturopaths and chiropractors and all different types of medical arts. And so Rockefeller decided he purchased a large pharmaceutical company in Germany. It was called IG Farben. And with that, he had control of at least one of the pharmaceutical companies. And in the early 1900s, he hired a man named Abraham Flexner. He contracted him to submit a report to Congress. And what he did is he said, I want you to go around to America, to all the medical schools in the United States, and I want you to see what they're doing. And so his report after 5 years of travel and investigation was helpful in one way, because he said, hey, we need hard science. We need to be doing scientific studies to understand physiology and chemistry, so we can understand what normal physiology is and what diseased physiology is, so we can at least start to understand the process and heal. That was right. But one of the messages he came back with was, hey, these are some of the schools that are using these new pharmaceutical products as part of their curriculum. So at that point, Rockefeller teamed up with Carnegie, and they said, we're going to support these medical schools. We're going to give them large grants, and we're going to stop the message of these other alternative approaches, and we're going to fund medical schools that are teaching the pharmaceutical approach, a pill for every ill. And so with that, these other modalities that we now have today that are respected they were really squashed, and their voice and their impact on medicine at the 1900s was really limited. They've come back now because Big Pharma, this is the origin of Big Pharma, really has the control they want. They have, they just have a lot of power. They have a lot of money. So this, I think this is it's really it's a little bit mind blowing. It's a little bit disturbing. Um, but that is the approach. So when you go to medical school, the first year you learn about the healthy body. You learn anatomy and basic physiology and just the basics of health. The second year is all about the disease processes, the diseases, the process, and then the treatment, which is surgery or pharmaceuticals. And that's what we're taught. And that was the message. Hey, back in the 1900s, we don't want to teach people how to heal with food. We're going to use these pharmaceutical products because, hey, look, we can create vitamin C and vitamin D from petroleum. And it's not that those are bad because they're completely the same structure. But the point is they're using they created other molecules in addition to those that they're just basically foreign to our body. And we're controlling blood pressure, we're controlling blood sugar, and we're controlling acid reflux. But I always tell people the body does not know what to do with a chemical that it was not designed to be able to recognize. And so when it sees that, everything goes to the liver, and the liver says, don't know what this is, probably bad, we've got to get rid of it. So we're going to try to bind it to something and either excrete it in the urine or excrete it through our bowel movements. But sometimes those molecules get through to the body and they start interacting on cell membranes and other messengers, and they create the response that we want in medicine to lower blood pressure or to control blood sugar or heartburn. But we don't really understand always the long-term effects and what they're doing in the cell and communication between the cells. And so sometimes you see pharmaceuticals that have been FDA approved, they've passed the testing, but then they've caused diseases, they've caused cancer, and they've caused other problems, so they get pulled from the market. So a lot of people are really reluctant to use pharmaceuticals, and I understand that. However, if you have high blood pressure and you can't get it down, and there's no other, you've got your ideal body weight, and you're eating right, and you're exercising, you're managing stress, and getting enough sleep, and all those things, you got to do something because you cannot risk your health with uncontrolled blood pressure. So there is a role for these pharmaceuticals, but unfortunately, the message in medical school is, you got high blood pressure, here, take this. And we never learned, we were never taught about nutrition. We were never taught about herbal treatments and these other modalities. So now, after 25 years of practice, I recognize there's a lot of things that we should do before we turn to these prescription medications.
Which should be a last resort.
It should be the last resort. And after we tell people, hey, stop smoking and lose weight, get some exercise, and most of the time they don't do that very well. Sometimes they do it well, and sometimes we're still left with a problem that looks like it needs to be treated. So that's when we turn to the pharmaceuticals. But the message is that the body can heal itself, and we really need to try to do everything we can to allow the body to do that. I am so thankful for antibiotics. That's part of this pharmaceutical approach. I'm grateful for pain medications. So there's definitely a lot of positives. I'm grateful for the messaging by this gentleman who was contracted by Rockefeller to really advance scientific studies and understanding physiology. Yeah. But the fallout that we now have is people come in our office with a boatload of medication, and they have no idea. All they know is it's this color shape pill. This is one I take in the morning. And they'll stop one and start another, and then we'll say, what are you taking? And they'll say, well, I'm taking, here's my list. And then when you look, they're not taking what's on their list. So especially when there's a lot of medications and you get older, it's really hard to keep track of that. Extremely, extremely dangerous. And I can't tell you how many people come into the hospital with a cardiac arrest, and we think, oh, they had a heart attack. Well, that's what we're treating them for, because we're shocking their heart. We're giving them the drugs to try to save their life. And we will put on a death certificate. I've done a dozen of these in the last month. A death certificate. What did they die from? Well, they came in with chest pain, their heart stopped. Okay, cardiac arrest. But there's no way of proving that maybe it was a combination of medications that threw their heart into an abnormal rhythm that caused this to happen. So we miss that. One last comment I want to make in relation to this story about Rockefeller and Carnegie is there's a lot of marketing that goes into these pharmaceuticals, and it's push, push, push. Here's the drug. Here's the drug. If you have cancer, it's at least $150,000 of cancer treatment before you either survive it, medications before you survive it or succumb to it. Big, big money in cancer treatments, medications. One of the things I do in my practice that I love is bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I find that people have low thyroid, low testosterone, abnormal estrogen levels, low DHEA, and I supplement, I replace, I optimize back to the optimal levels, and they feel so much better. Their energy improves, their sleep improves, their risk of breast cancer actually goes down, it doesn't go up. And why isn't and they feel better and they're losing weight. And why don't more people know about this? Because bioidentical hormones you can't patent something that's identical to your body. So there's no big pharma marketing this on TV. So people don't know about it. They're not aware of it. And this is the other sort of the fallout message from this story of big pharma. They really control the information. And as you go through medical school or nurse practitioner training, this is what you're taught to do. And everybody does it. And everybody assumes that it's the right thing. And it's not until you've been in practice for a couple of years and you're open your eyes to this when you see that people, boy, they're not better on this. They feel worse. And I'm giving them 3 medications and now they're having side effects. And now what do I do? Because they can't afford it or there's a problem with it. So we really get stuck, and primary care providers get really burned out in primary care because of these issues. People come in on a boatload of medicines. They don't feel better. You feel like you failed. All we're trying to do is help. They're complaining about this, this, and this, and you don't know what to do. And sometimes when we sit back and they'll come back and say, hey, I went on this diet and I lost 20 pounds and I'm lightheaded now. And we say, well, your blood pressure is too low. Stop your blood pressure medicine. And we're happy to see that. But we're starting to make these connections like, well, wait a minute. If you lost weight, your blood pressure goes down. Okay, I'm going to tell people to lose weight. But then we don't know how to help people lose weight. We don't understand that they need optimal thyroid. They need optimal hormones. They need a stress management course. They need all this support in all these areas. So in primary care medicine, a lot of us realize that this approach with big pharma as the first and only treatment is wrong. But we really don't know where else to turn because we're not trained in herbal therapies, in naturopathic approaches, and the benefits. I can't tell you how much Dr. Jakubowski and my chiropractor friends help people with common ailments that many people would just end up on pain medicines and debilitated. And in a couple of visits, they're walking out pain-free and they're completely functional again. So these old modalities we had in the early 1900s, there is a place for them, and we need to turn to them. And we need to turn to the pharmaceuticals last and recognize, where all this came from.
Unfortunately, even 100 years ago or 110 years ago, still was based on making money.
That, unfortunately, they always say follow the money, and there's truth to that, and it's sad. And I think there's a lot of people with good intentions. I've got good friends who are pharmaceutical representatives. Good intentions, they really believe in the product, and I think they do help people. But there's a price to pay to put chemicals in your body that are foreign to it. And sometimes you see those, and sometimes people really suffer from those. Sometimes we don't recognize that's happening, and maybe it's not happening. But it's my last approach. It's been my observation and what I've seen, and that's why I love doing the Fit for Life program.
Yeah,
I love educating people and saying, hey, here's your problem. Here's 3 different things that can help you. And the last one is a medication.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps people. I hope that doesn't offend anybody or make anybody feel like we're picking on big pharma, because I think there's a lot of good that can be done there. But we just have to realize how this evolved and where we are now, how we got where we are.
We appreciate that history lesson. And if you meet Dr. McKnight and you say, hey, leafy green vegetables, you'll make him smile. So.
You will, yes.
Thank you so much. That's Dr. Tim McKnight as we talk with the doc this morning.